review of Wambui Collymore'S Eulogy and a tribute to Bob Collymore. So, what happened is there's actually a story behind this. I just woken up. We all know that on 1st July, our CEO for Safaricom, Bob Collymore, passed on. But I was talking to my friends, and there was a mixed feeling about this whole thing because, yes, he passed away from cancer, and it's sad, but us as the common Mwananchi, we didn't quite know him, so you couldn't really associate with his passing apart from just knowing death is sad and that's it. So there was no feeling per se because we didn't quite know him. Then I remember, I think it's 2 days ago, I had just woken up from an afternoon nap, and for some reason I was on YouTube and I saw Wambui Collymore'S Eulogy, and I don't know why it interested me, but I was just like, let me just listen to this. The eulogy is 7 minutes. It's but after those 7 minutes, your opinion about Bob Collymore, about his family, about his beliefs, about everything just changes. And I think on that account, I owe him an apology because I'm like, I just judged him based on a stereotype. Like people would say, Safaricom is suffering home. We, the common Mwananchi, we're always complaining about how our airtime just disappears. We don't understand what really happens. So we tend to say like maybe it's Bob Collymore who takes our money because we know he gets a seven-figure salary, and just to us we just don't get it. But when you listen to this eulogy by this very great woman, everything changes and you're like, this was a great man, and his impact that he's left in the society is even greater. So I'd like to just talk a little about that eulogy and my lesson about it. So I also did a little research about Wambui Collymore. Before she was Wambui Collymore, she was Wambui Camero. I can't remember her second name well, but she's a great woman on her own because she is into art and she tries to use art to speak to society and to spark depth in our society. There is a particular art installation she did in 2015, March 2015, where she was trying to show the stereotype of our society based on the the policies set by the missionaries and the colonial administration. So she was saying, how can colonial administrators and the missionaries come and write about our culture, though they were using it as a way to understand our culture, but how can they write about our culture, yet they're not part of our own culture? She argued it out and said that was a very blank thing for us to accept, like whatever we've been told about our culture based on our historical books, which are written by missionaries and colonial administrators, because you can't write about something that is not part of you, that is not you. She goes on and says that what they did is more like writing a guidebook for birds. How can you write about birds yet you've never been a bird? You can fly like a bird. What exactly can you know about birds? Yes, scientists will argue that they can study birds, but you can only study so much. But to live an experience, you have to be part of that actual experience. So this greatness of this woman goes on even after she gets married and she becomes Wambui Collymore. Her eulogy, she might not know, but has changed the minds of very many people. In her eulogy, she gives the story. She gives Bob Collymore's best story, which is the story by Dr. Seuss. Halton Hears a Who, the story of the elephant who had a call for help from a speck of dust and decided to help these people, the people living in the speck of dust, move from one place to a safer place. When the elephant had the speck of dust, had a call for help from the speck of dust, he was amused and was like, is the speck of dust actually talking to me? So he took the speck of dust and wanted to know, like, you wanted to know what is really going on. Then he discovered there were actually little people living in the speck of dust, and these people in that little town in the speck of dust needed his help. So he committed himself to moving these people. Being a big animal, he committed himself to moving this speck of dust from its place, from that place to another, to a safer place. So when he was walking around, he got a clover and put the speck of dust just because he knew he was a big animal and he did not know how to handle the speck of dust gently enough to not crush the people in the speck of dust. So he got a clover and he was like, he's going to carry this speck of dust and the clover and move it to a safer location where the little people in the speck of dust can be safe. On his way, he met different animals, and they were all amused, like, why is the elephant talking to a speck of dust? Them, they did not hear the voices of the little people living in the speck of dust. So they assumed that maybe the elephant had gone crazy. At a point, they even tried to cage it. Other animals laughed at him. And eventually, the monkeys stole the clover from him with the speck of dust. And the eagle took the clover from the monkeys and threw it into a pile of other clovers. The elephant still did not give up on the little people. He knew that he had promised to help them move to a safer location, so he went looking for that clover in a bunch of like 3 million other clovers. Then when he eventually found the clover, he took the little people, he took the clover and the speck of dust that was the home to the little people and moved it to safety. So the lesson is, this elephant is a mighty animal, doing so much for little people that he can't even see, but he's only acting on a hunch and mainly what he thinks he can hear, and what he's only, and that he is the only one who's able to hear. So when I listened to this eulogy, some things came about. The point that Wambui Collymore kept on emphasizing is that a person is a person, no matter how small. You need to sit back and think, like, how many times has the world tried to silence you because it thinks that you're not important, that you're not significant in a way or another? How many times have people told you not to do something because you might not do it? The most interesting thing was, when the universe is calling you to do something, it just works in very weird ways. So I told myself, I took my notebook and I have so many notes. I have pages and pages of notes. I have 4 pages of notes. So I just wrote things down. I wrote the whole speech. I even wrote like the animals that reacted, like the kangaroo, the monkey. It's even amazing I'm not referring to all this, but the thing is, if this is Bob Collymore's favorite story, and this story he argues it out from how his grandmother raised him. His grandmother used to take in children and take care of them, and Bob Collymore would have to share like his toys and his bed with these children, and sometimes he'd wake up with pee from these children, and maybe of course you'd feel a bit agitated. This is my grandmother's house, this is my bed, and I have to share. But slowly he learned that though they didn't have much, the little they had they shared, and that way he had little brothers and sisters who were bound to him by love. So this is a virtue that Bob Collymore learned from his grandmother, and he grew up with such a virtue that he brought to Safaricom, and that has actually made Safaricom super great. Because you know, Safaricom, as we think of Safaricom in terms of airtime and in terms of bundles and all that, but we don't see the bigger picture. We don't see the things that Safaricom does behind the scenes. We don't see the fact that Safaricom works to bringing water where there is no water. Safaricom works to bringing medical camps where there are no hospitals. Safaricom brings schools to children who are usually taught under schools. These, to the common mwananchi, we overlook the fact that there's so much being done, and all this is willed by a man who had the vision of greatness for a community that he does not know really, because he is from South Africa. He came to Kenya on a job, but everybody knows the people. Now, okay, after I had the eulogy and I was interested to know who exactly was Bob Collymore, I went checking for interviews and checking for videos on him, and he was a bubbly person, he was a happy person, he was a very great person. And in one of his interviews, he's asked, like, what can you tell the youth of Kenya to do to help them get employment and to better the society? He says the Kenyan society should invest in manufacturing, because if they build a society where them themselves are they're the axe to the society, they're building it together, they're working together, they'll actually make a better society for themselves, and the youth will have more than enough employment. Because you know, the basis of everything is the manufacturing process of it, because you manufacture, then you dispatch, you distribute, and then you retail, and then you sell. So the broadest market is the manufacturing market. So I am super moved by what this great lady said, because based on the situation and how she handled it, it's graceful. She just lost a loved one, but she was used by God as a vessel to share more than we had actually expected. And she brings me to thinking that when the dead leave us, they actually live on within us. She shared what Bob Collymore truly believed. She shared his favorite story. And through this story, all of us who get to listen to her eulogy get to know the great man that he was. He was a man who believed that no matter how small one is, they have a purpose in life, and they should be let to speak out. They should be given a platform to speak out, and they should be appreciated for who they are, because small people, the story of the elephant and the speck, it goes that the smallest person in the town of the small people living in the speck was the one who called out for help from the elephant. So the lesson is very simple, actually, that no matter how small you think you are, you have an impact. So don't let anybody shut you up. Don't let anyone tell you anything, that you cannot do anything, that you're not relevant, that you're not significant. Wambui Collymore'S says that the speaking up is the basic idea behind activism and the foundation of making things right. The other way of doing what we can is learning how to be considerate about our friends, our families, our neighbors, our little brothers and sisters, and our surroundings. We need to we need to see each other. We need to know how to say hello to each other. We need to be grateful for each other. We need to be grateful to each other. And this way, we will bring back a society that is more impactful. She says, even when you're considerate about your family and friends, you need to also be considerate about yourself and about your surroundings. When you're considerate about yourself, you'll take care of yourself, and when you're considerate about your surroundings, you'll take care of your surroundings. So when you think of this story by Bob Collymore that was told to us by his wife, you find that this man was truly a great man, and he tells us the simple things. Let us not be ashamed. And he also Collymore's also forgive me. Whew. He also tells us that the spirit lives on, because he might not be here, but his lessons, his character, his contribution, and his work lives on. So Bob Collymore, I salute you, and I salute all that you stand for. Thank you, thank you. Till next time, have a lovely weekend.